Release Podcast, the show where we go through the development and release of some of the gaming industry's most high-profile games, finding stories from development, trials and tribulations, and chronicling the game from development to release.
Here we go!
And I'm joined by Rob.
Hi.
Is that it?
Yeah.
That's all anybody needs to know.
Well, I plan on bringing a horn round and having a big sort of entrance, but you were against that, so...
For those listening who did that last time, but we got rid of it because it just didn't feel right, did it?
Oh, it felt amazing. It felt amazing.
Felt truly amazing.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what we were here to talk about instead of your horn adventures, why don't we?
Horn obsession.
That sounds really wrong, doesn't it?
That's what we like.
He's got a horn obsession, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll let you take your transition, though.
Take my transition?
Yeah, go on. You're trying to transition away from horns and I brought it back to horns.
Oh, you've just looped it. You just brought it into a loop.
It's a vicious cycle.
So I thought to start off with, I'd just read out the Wikipedia plot synopsis for the game, because we tried this before, and it's funny without trying to be funny.
No, it is.
It really is. So it reads, and this is deadly serious, I copied and pasted this directly from Wikipedia, which is probably something you shouldn't say on the first episode of your podcast, but I think it needs to be said. It reads... Super Mario 64 is set in Princess Peach's castle, which consists of 3 floors, a basement, a moat, and a courtyard. The area outside the castle is an introductory area in which the player can experiment with gameplay, camera, and movement controls. Now, before I go on, what's weird about that? What's weird about the first sentence about this game? It tells you about the layout of the castle.
It's almost like it's Mario Sims.
Yeah. You've got 3 floors to play with.
Yeah.
It doesn't mention anything about what the game is. It didn't say it's a 3D.
Wait, so that's the description of the game.
Yeah.
So for someone that doesn't know anything about Mario, they go, "Oh, I'll look it up, see what it is," and it's like, "Oh, well, Peach lives in a 3-story house. She votes Tories.
Semi-detached.
Yeah.
Pays all the bills on time.
Yeah.
What's Mario's literally a plumber at that point.
Yeah. Working his way up.
He's come to fix the pipes.
Yeah. Your job is to infiltrate the house, fix the pipes, and maybe stay there for a few years.
Ooh. And then it reads, after that, scattered throughout the castle are entrances to courses via secret walls and paintings. Super Mario 64 begins with a letter from Princess Peach inviting Mario to come to her castle for a cake she has baked for him. Now, what on earth is in that cake? Could be anything.
It could be.
It's like, the way it says, she's baked a cake for him, I'm like, has she though? Maybe she just wants him to come over.
Maybe it's some of those magic mushrooms that make that big boy grow.
Oh, wait. Is it meant to be sexual, that?
Very much so.
Very much so. You don't know what Mario and Peach get up to in their spare time.
Mario time.
Okay, for everybody listening, we tried to incorporate the words Mario time into the intro before, and we couldn't find the right time.
I think it's one of the most natural ways to put it in.
Yeah, that's about as natural as it gets.
If that's the only thing we get from this, it was a win, you know?
Yeah, it was a win. But I thought I might as well try and fill in what's missing from this Wikipedia synopsis of Mario 64 is that it's a 3D platformer. It was released in Japan in like the mid-90s, and a few months later the rest of the world. And it's Mario's first 3D game, and where he must collect, is it 120 stars? It's a lot.
It's a lot,
It's
yeah.
It's a lot.
Up there.
It's up there.
It must be at least 8.
Yeah. Maybe more, maybe less. No, not less. It's more than 8, definitely. Yeah, so you jump into the different levels, and you get your power stars, and then you fight Bowser a couple of times, maybe 3 times the charm. Bada bing, bada boom, the day is saved. Is the princess captured? She isn't she, yeah.
I'd just like to preface that the only time I played this game was on the DS back in about 2008.
Ooh. Well, I mean, I've got it on the DS. I've been playing it now because I can't play the N64 version because it's dead old me.
Yeah. No, so I have very fond memories of the game. I think it was one of the first games I got on the DS, which I think was a very common trend back then.
Yeah, I've got a story about that, actually.
Yeah, I think if you had a DS back then, you probably had 64 on there, along with Mario Kart.
Ooh.
And they were the only games you had. Oh, and PictoChat.
Yeah, I remember I got it for, I think it was either my birthday or Christmas, and I was at my grandparents' house, and I got what I was given for my birthday, but I'd asked for Mario 64 on the DS, and I think my mum knew I wanted it so bad that she waited till like 5 o'clock in the afternoon to give it me, and I just remember this like emotional torment of being like, where is it? It's gotta be here.
Oh no, I actually have a similar story to that. Completely different game. But I was really into the wrestling games when I was younger, and when WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 was about to come out, I wanted it more than anything. I begged my mum for it until I found out it was being released, which was obviously like back in October or something. I begged her for it non-stop. She promised me she'd get it. Rolls around to Christmas time, she's like, "Oh no, I can't afford it. I'm sorry." She was very honest with me, and I mean, I was 8, so the fact that she played with me like this is pretty upsetting.
Savage mum.
She said she couldn't afford it, which is fine. Working class mum, single mum. She can't afford everything. I understood, even at the age of 8.
All right, get off your horse, mate.
And then, so it rolls around to about Christmas Eve, I think it was. She somehow told me that she'd bought a present for the neighbour, the kid. And I was 8,
And you bought that?
I was dumb. No, she bought it for him, apparently. And made me wrap it. And me being 8 and 9.
Oh, is this the game?
Yeah.
That's evil.
Yeah, she made me wrap it and give it to him.
You had to give it to him?
I had to go around and say to her, "Oh, go Merry Christmas." So I gave the present, which we were very close with the neighbours. I don't think I really mentioned that. So it wasn't weird for us to do that. But it was the fact that she told me she couldn't afford the games and she made me wrap it. So I'm there crying to my cornflakes, wrapping this present like, "Oh, what did this, Mum?"
So wait, your bowl of cornflakes and then you're wrapping the present above the cornflakes?
No, under.
The coasters, the corn.
Yeah.
The box.
Yeah, the box is the coaster, yeah. But yeah, then it turns out the next day she just gave me the same wrapping paper. I didn't even realise until I opened it. And then I don't think it was until like 10 minutes after I was like, I wrapped this.
It took you 10 minutes to be like,
I was 8, Will, and I just got the game I always wanted. I didn't really think about things.
That's a heartwarming story.
It is.
Apart from the bit where your mum was like absolutely evil to you and made you give it to your neighbour. Yeah. That's really cruel. So now we're going to get on to the development of the game. And I thought a good place to start would be before it was actually conceptualised.
Yeah.
The birth of the game.
The idea.
But it comes from, in 1993, the game Star Fox, which you probably know. It's the one with, what's his name? He's called Fox.
Fox.
Fox McCloud, that's it. But, yeah, that was made on the Super Nintendo using something called the Super FX chip, which allowed the Super Nintendo to push its hardware. And then when Miyamoto saw it, who's the creator of Mario, good old Shiggy Miyamoto.
Shiggy
you? Shiggy me.
Shiggy me.
Oh, that's horrible.
Reminds me of Austin Powers, that. Shiggy you, shiggy me, baby.
God. I've never seen Austin Powers,
Oh, that was a direct reference.
So yeah, Miyamoto saw that and went, well, we could use that for Mario. Lo and behold, they didn't. No, they didn't. Twist.
Whoa.
So essentially, Mario 64 was originally developed on the Super Nintendo, like a completely different game, but they were using that to push the hardware, and over time they couldn't bring it forward. They couldn't get the development going for it. Roll it out. So, and I think around that time the Nintendo 64 was in development, so I think they sort of just pushed it back. And Miyamoto at the time said that the version that would have been on the Super Nintendo would have been all in miniature. He said miniature trains. Now I don't really know what that means. He said it would be like a game, the style, it'd be like miniatures.
Right.
Like toys. I think that's what he means. It'd be like a little miniature set where you when you build trains and you build that world.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Like Reverend Lovejoy from The Simpsons.
Right, yeah.
First Simpsons reference to the pod.
Nice.
And after that, when they put it on the N64, the development started with the controls and the camera. And this is likely because they were hardest parts to create, because you were adding that to a 3D world. It's not 2D where Mario's just running across the screen from left to right. He's running in up, down, left, which way, diagonal jump, slide.
Well, I think it's important to remember that this was one of the first games of its kind.
I think it is the first 3D game. There is another one. It's called that one on the PS1, the one where you're in a ship and it jumps.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, but that's the first quote unquote 3D game. But this is the proper first big one. That's
the thing. It wasn't them simply just making a new Mario game. It was them recreating the video game industry. They made a whole new. I mean, they pushed it forward completely, didn't they?
Yeah.
So it wasn't just as simple as getting an old computer and a whole video game console and just pushing it to its limits. It was about
sort of starting afresh.
Yeah.
And I think that comes through because the camera you could control using the C buttons on the N64 controller. It wasn't just it was literally just a camera, because they got a Lakitu, do you know the little guy that flies on the cloud?
Yeah.
They put it in the game as the camera that you're seeing on the TV is a Lakitu with a little camera, and it follows you around, and he's reality TV filming you as you go.
Yeah.
I think so. They tried to introduce it in a way where it felt more natural, because if they just went, oh, there's also a 3D camera that you have to control, I think everybody at the time would just be like, I have no idea what I'm doing or what's going on. So moving on from that, Miyamoto wanted to include all the emotions of the characters in his game in like a 3D cartoon, is what he said. Right. He wants it to be like lively and action packed, and I think you get that in more than anywhere than with the voice.
Yeah. Was this the first time he was voiced in a game?
Yes, it was. It was the first time that there was an actual voice. It's the first time good old Charles Martinet decided to become Mario.
See, I didn't actually realise that until, well, now.
Right. We've got an exclusive on the pod. Mario's first voice was in 64.
No, I mean, I didn't really consider it. So it wasn't even just that it was, like, in terms of Mario games that we know today, it wasn't even just that it was 3D and that it was, there was more to it than just running across the screen.
Yeah.
It incorporated the sounds as well.
Yeah, because obviously in the original you'd have like the jumping sounds and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But there's an extra level of sound that you could get from the N64, which is why they put so much more in, why the music's, I would say, so much better, and why you get so much more like action from... Because in the original Mario's, when he jumps, you just get that... I'm not going to try and recreate the noise, but you know, like the... bloop.
Yeah,
I tried to recreate the noise, and there it was terrible. Yeah. But in that, you get like the grunts and the jumps of a small Italian man.
Bloop. Is that the kind of noise you're
That's
putting
exactly how it goes.
Yeah.
Have you? When did you last play it? Because I was playing it before, and that's exactly what I heard.
Yeah.
But yeah, that character extends to just the game in general, because Miyamoto tells the story of where the boos in the game are modelled after one of the developers' wives, and he says that she's normally very quiet, but one day she exploded, maddened by all the time Tezuka, that's the developer in question, all the time that he spent at work. Because in the game, the boos shrink when Mario looks at them, but when he turns away, they grow large and menacing, and that's like trying to be like his wife. Like half the time she's really quiet, but then she'll just explode.
That's awful. That is how he let his wife live on. She will be gone one day, and the thing she lives on as is a small white ghost. It's not even the main bad guy in Mario.
Not even Bowser.
Yeah.
Just a ghost. It's quite fitting. When she does pass away, if she's not already, rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
She'll be a boo.
Yeah.
Tormenting him forever.
Awful.
What's the main thing about Mario?
Mario time.
Not Mario time.
Oh.
What's the thing that he does all the time?
Yahoo!
Close.
Not that one.
What's that tied to, though?
Jumping.
There you go.
Right.
We got there in the end. I was hoping that wouldn't take 20 minutes because it
just went through the entire catalogue of Mario noises, and you're like, no, it's the other one. Go back to.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
No, but that's the central mechanic of the character since he was first introduced in like the 80s. So the platforming for this needed to follow something similar. He had to jump all the time, but the problem is it's a 3D space. So he doesn't just jump from left to right.
Yeah.
He jumps everywhere. He does his triple jumps. He can jump incredibly high, incredibly short. You can control him mid-air, all that kind of stuff. So how did they get around that? Well, some Japanese guides for Super Mario 64 contain interviews telling us about exactly how this worked. Miyamoto says Mario's centre of gravity is in his hips, where all our centres of gravity are, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know actually where centre of gravity is.
Mine's in my fat head.
You're just wobbling about. Oh, guys, I'm going to fall over as you are.
A small breeze will knock me over.
It carries your head and you're flying. Your body's like waving in the wind. No, sadly for Mario, it's not in his head. It's in his hips. So they programmed a big joint into that sort of point, in the middle of his body, and all of his movements come from there. So his leaning when he runs comes from that area. When he turns, when he jumps, and when he flips in midair, it's all centered around his hips. Like, that's how they got around it. Instead of it being like his entire little, 10 pixel tall body, it's in one location, because that's sort of, when you move, that's where you control. You don't control him from his head.
Yeah,
you control him from the middle of him, essentially. So even his acceleration's tied to that point. And on top of that, the environment had to change for these jumps to be successful. And I think this is a really interesting point, actually, because essentially what Miyamoto says is that in the original Mario, the jumping could be really precise. You could, go for you have to jump to a specific point, and it'd be a small margin for error, but you have a lot more control, so it's a lot easier. But now that you could travel any which way, they had to make the margin for error a lot bigger. And if you remember this, in pretty much all the levels in Mario 64, when you jump to a different platform, those platforms are quite big.
Yeah.
And that's because they didn't want it to be like super hard. They didn't want to have a platform like in the original Mario's, which was the size of Mario.
Yeah.
Imagine having to jump to that.
Yeah, like triple jump, backflip.
Wall kick.
Yeah.
Backflip.
Yahoo.
Yahoo. Well, there it is. The Yahoo, the famous Mario. Yahoo. Do you reckon Mario uses Yahoo search engine?
Maybe.
Or does he use Google?
You could have definitely put that into a joke.
Well, we're here now. We're in the joke now.
Yeah.
Where's it going?
You completely pulled the rug out from under that, haven't you?
Where's it going? Nobody knows. Yahoo! So, how many characters are in Mario 64? You've got Mario, Peach,
the guy with the camera,
Lakitu.
Yeah.
Bowser.
Yeah.
Toad.
Yeah.
But who's not there? Somebody's famous other brother. He's in green.
Oh, Waluigi.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
no.
that's not.
No.
Luigi's not in it.
No, he's not in the original. He's in the remake, but he's not in the original. And before the game was released, they were developing to have him in the game in a sort of split-screen co-op mode, where Mario and Luigi would start at other ends of the castle. Like, Mario starts outside.
Yeah.
Luigi would start at another point, and then they'd sort of come into the middle and meet. Miyamoto is quoted in a Destructoid article saying that the screen was split and they went into the castle separately. And when they meet in the corridor, he was incredibly happy. Then there was also the mode where the camera was fixed and we see Mario running away, steadily getting smaller and smaller. So it's like the camera would balance between the two of them.
Right.
Like, I'm trying to think. It's a bit like in the Lego games, when you go away from each other.
Yeah.
And the camera like pulls out and then it go into split screen and that kind of thing. That's sort of what they were going for. But Miyamoto then says that was a remnant of an experiment we did where Mario and Luigi were running away from each other, but you could still see them both. But we were unable to pull it off. So in the end, they couldn't do it, but they wanted to have split-screen co-op in Mario.
Yeah.
Which I think would have been amazing. Which is sad that it's not in there.
Yeah.
But you can sort of see the remnants of it, because in the 64 DS on the DS on the remake...
DS on the remake, on the download.
On the download. No, the DS remake.
Yeah.
Luigi's actually in it and you can play as him.
Yeah.
And he has his little flutter jump and things like
Think
that.
about how much things might be different now, though, if they did put that in.
They'd be very different.
Because I could only imagine that they'd give it 110%. It wouldn't be some half-assed sort of useless multi-game.
Oh yeah, it would be like they incorporate it into the level design. I think that's why it was a very early game thing, because they would have changed so much of the game in the sense that the levels would probably be designed slightly differently. The way you get some of the stars would be they'd probably incorporate that you have to do things as two players. A bit like have you played Portal 2?
Yeah.
Do you know when you have the two-player mode with the two robots
Yeah.
and you work I feel like that is very Nintendo, and that's how they designed some of the stars. Like maybe Mario has to jump on a switch and Luigi runs through a corridor or something like that.
Or Luigi picks up his patented portal gun.
Yes.
Yeah,
How could I have forgotten Luigi's portal gun?
Yeah. It came in sunshine.
Yeah.
On the game.
Mario had
on the
GameCube, the water, and Luigi had the portal gun.
Yeah.
How could you forget?
Only one though.
Yeah. It never came up again.
Yeah.
People never talk about Luigi's portal gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a shame.
It's one of those sort of forgotten video game history facts.
Yeah, of course it is. Other things that got removed would have been the monkeys. Do you remember the monkey from the Mario 64 originally?
No.
Well, in one of the levels, there's a little monkey that steals your hat, and Miyamoto and Tezuka, the guy from before whose wife is a boo. Classic.
Yeah. Boo, like from Aladdin. Boo.
No, a boo, as in a scary boo. Spooky. But there were to be more monkeys, and there were to be more levels, and they were supposed to like group up, tease Mario. I mean, the monkey already teases Mario. He steals his hat. But I suppose maybe they just didn't want to have too many monkeys in because it'd be too disorientating. And another massively famous thing from Mario 64 is probably the levels, when you jump into the paintings.
Yeah.
I always used to try to do a long jump into them, but usually I'd like hit the bit right underneath, so he'd just go, oh, and then just like bounce off. Or you do it right before and he'd like long jump and then you just like jump straight in. To do sick tricks like Tony Hawk style flips.
I always remember I can't quite remember what it is, but there's one where you run towards the painting and the hallway keeps getting longer and longer.
And it gets smaller. Yeah, and they have the stairs that when you go up them, it does the music. It's like...
Yeah.
It just keeps getting higher, but you can't get up the stairs. Yeah. The levels, originally, they weren't planned out as an entire level. Like, they didn't map out the entire, let's say, Bob-on Battlefield and then do it. Like, Miyamoto would go to some of the head level designers and basically be like, here's a concept I've got for a level, which might be like an ice level or a level where there's a big bomb man at the top of a hill, and then he'd say, and I want these challenges to be in it. I want to be like a chain chomp on a, on a little, what are they called, like little wood planks or whatever, like in those, and then they brainstorm back together. They'd be like, well, we can work with this, we can put this here, we can do that, and then they give the finished products and notes to the other programmers, and then on top of that, it would they'd all feed into each other basically. It wouldn't be like you just design a level and make it. It was very like free form,
sort of brought up on a whim.
Like there'd be an idea and they just expand out from the idea and go back and forth and things like that.
I think that shows though, because the worlds are so open that it's almost as if you can tell that it wasn't just one guy's idea with like a straight path, if that makes sense. Yeah. There's so much you can do, and there's so many different ideas in every single level that it couldn't. I think it works well to have been a group idea that's formed that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because essentially, you look at an original Mario level and it's left to right, so it's like you plan it out and you make it. You might make a couple of changes.
Yeah, I mean, look at Super Mario Maker. Anyone can make a Mario, an original 2D Mario level. It's easy. You just have to be able to put in a few jumps, few tricks.
few tricks and tips.
A few tricks and tips. Whereas with 64, the whole reason why it's lived on, it's not because it's the first 3D game. You said before, it's not even the first 3D game. There was one on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
Not Jet Force Gemini. It's like Super Flash Jumper or something.
But you're struggling to remember the name.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Mario 64 isn't so popular because it's the first of its kind. It is in many
aspects.
Yeah. But the reason why it lives on is because it's
done so well.
Yeah.
Like the levels, they're so open, but they're not open in the sense where somebody's made the world of, let's say, for example, Skyrim, and then just plot things in it. Because in open world games these days, that's what you can see. But in this, they've clearly come up with an idea and built off it. They haven't left any open space for the sake of having open space.
Yeah, I mean, Skyrim's a bad example because I think like that's the epitome of sort of open world games. But if you bring it back to something more recent, the new Spider-Man game, PS4 Spider-Man game, where there's a lot of things just sort of put in the city.
Like they made Manhattan first, clearly.
Yeah. But then a lot of they made Manhattan, and Manhattan's big.
It's great to swing around in.
It is, but then you can tell that they've just put one of Harry's chem labs.
Good old Harry's chem labs.
Yeah, Harry's chem labs. No, but like it's very much like the world is filled in afterwards.
Yeah. That's not the case with this game, is it? No,
it's like the world's been made for the level.
The world's been made for the level?
That's not what I meant.
That's not what you meant?
No, what I meant was it's like, I don't know how to word it. The level's been made with purpose. Everything in the level makes sense.
Yeah, it's not like he's just gone, oh, there's a Goomba there. Why? Why not?
Yeah, they've not added a legend because it looks cool.
Yeah.
The ledge is there because you're going to have to use it at some point, no matter how small it is.
Like, for example, on Bob on Battlefield, now that we're talking about it, so get the gears turning. You walk up the little hill, don't you, and there's a couple of Goombas. Yeah. And then there's the, so it's teaching you need to, like, jump over the Goombas or go around them. And then there's the bridge, which if you fall off, you have to go up it to get around. And then, so there's Goombas on there as well. So you either have to then challenge yourself into a smaller area to jump over them, hit them, or jump on them.
Yeah.
And then if that was a regular Mario level, you'd have to do that. But in this game, you could just move to the left a bit and there's those little elevators. I think that's the bonus of the 3D world that they make. Yeah. It gives you choice and challenge still.
Yeah.
Because in the original Mario, you wouldn't have a choice. It's like, you got to go right. What about finding the princess? She's in another castle. Got to go right still. Go to the next level. But in this, it's like you can do... Even though the stars come up in an order, you can do them in whatever order you want.
Oh, yeah.
So you can get your 100 coins or your 8 red coins. Oh, do they have blue coins in Mario? No, they don't. That's in Sunshine, which is apparently like the worst bit of that game.
Yeah.
Because every time you get one, it's like, you gotta save. And then it's just like, oh. But in this, it saves after you get each star. So it's like, that sense of progression is natural. And then you can jump back into the level and you'll know the level. But the star might say, 8 red coins in the sky. So you'll have to get 8 red coins in the sky. Or it might say, race with Koopa the Quick. And then it's the same level. You know the level, but then you know like little tricks where you can shortcut. You could long jump over something so you can beat Koopa the Quick.
I think that's one thing I used to really like about it as well. It wasn't the objectives weren't as simple as go to door, open door.
What games have you been playing?
No, I mean many games.
Actually, you're probably right. The amount of games when I took the mick at you, then I'm thinking the amount of games that just say go to this location. It's
like, go to this location, go to this room, go through the drawer, pick up gun from drawer. play Call of Duty.
Imagine if you were playing COD and you boot it up and it's like, pick up controller.
No, it does.
It basically does.
It does. In the shooting range, Modern Warfare 1, is it? You go in and it tells you how to pick the gun up. It tells you how to... Well, it doesn't tell you how to pick the gun up, but you walk
over
it,
to it and it tells you to
pick it up.
X.
And then, and then, you know, it's... Whereas in Mario, it wasn't like that. Or 64, should I say. It was very much 8 red coins in the sky.
Just get them.
Yeah, I mean, you know what it's asking.
Yeah.
But it's not saying, like, it's not giving a pointer and saying this is where it is and you do this.
That's actually, as well, in terms of level design, when the game starts up, obviously you're outside the castle and it's a big field. The reason they did that is because they wanted you to get used to the 3D space, used to the controls, used to just how to play the game. So you understand all the tools that are at your disposal, all the different moves you can do. And then when you go into a level and it tells you to go somewhere, you can then think, well, how am I going to get there? And the game won't say, here's how to, for example, wall jump, because you'll have messed around. You'll hopefully have messed around so much that you'll have figured that out.
Yeah.
So then you'll know that to get up somewhere, you might have to wall jump or you might have to jump in a cannon or things like that. It's organic teaching.
I think that's something they've carried through even to today with like Odyssey, because it does teach you how to do the basic jumps.
Yeah, and at the very beginning of the game, you've got Cappy. He's basically telling you what to do.
But it gets to a point where, like, if you watch someone who's actually good at the game play the game, they'll do jumps you don't understand how to do. Do you know what I mean? It's not as simple as just like, oh, hey, I mean, they give you the list of how to do the jumps and stuff. It's very much like, here's an open world, go for it. Yeah, see what you can do.
Just have a go, basically. And I think that, as we were saying, we're still talking about level design, but the reason we're talking about this is because it all cycles into one sort of experience. It brings it together in a sense that with the original Mario, they went, right, so you can move left and right and you can jump and you can crouch. So then we design levels around that. In this, they have so many more moves. Instead of just doing a longer level with more challenges, it's wider instead of what it is long.
Yeah,
It's still quite long in the sense of levels are still take you a bit of time to do, but you don't just go in one direction to do them. You can go any direction you want. Yeah, Mario 64, I'd say, it's probably got the best sound design of most of the Mario games because, you know, it's the first one, as we were saying before, it's the first one with Mario's voice. Good old Charles Martinet and his wahoos! You know,
Yahoo!
It's iconic, isn't it?
It is.
And then you've got the Bowser noise, which is Bowser going, oh, something like that.
Which is so crap in comparison.
Yeah.
So much effort was put into the Star G, which is Mario.
The Star G.
Yeah.
The Star. He collects stars.
Yes.
Oh, very clever.
But yeah, about the soundtrack itself, I think the only game that really rivals it for me is Galaxy.
Mario Galaxy's got a great soundtrack. It's more sweeping in scope, that one.
Yeah,
this one's more focused on, like...
Whereas I feel like 64, I don't want to use the word homely, but I'm going to use the word homely.
Well, it's when you're in the castle, it plays like a welcoming song, you know, it's the... That's not the castle song, but that is Mario.
Which one's that from?
I don't know. Do you know?
I'm sure that's from 64. That's why
Probably.
I did it.
Or maybe that's a remix version of it, because you were doing it a lot more chill, like it was a vaporwave version of Mario song.
Was I in the wrong tone?
Oh, very clever. But yeah, I think the soundtrack and sort of the sound design in general, some of the sound design's not great. Like, for example, as we were saying, Bowser, but also the thwomps that just go, oh! You know, it's like, did one guy just come in that day and just go, oh! And then just
it was Mrs. Boo.
They got her to do the voice.
They turned around for too long. They caught her on camera.
No, and the boos basically just, they do like little laughs, don't they, and stuff.
Yeah.
I think, a lot of the sound, it's either like Mario's voice or the soundtrack, because the rest of it, I feel like it's limited, and you can tell the sounds that they wanted to make. Like, they wanted Bowser to be really menacing, but it just doesn't really...
It's menacing in its own way.
I'm not saying he has to be like super, super scary. It's just, you know, there could be a bit more...
Scary Terry from...
Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
If Bowser was Scary Terry from Rick and Morty... You're not gonna get this key, bitch.
Yeah. You must stop, bitch. I got your princess, bitch.
Imagine that. I know it comes up with the text boxes, doesn't it? And
yeah.
It just keeps saying bitch. What was that? Is that a text box?
Yeah.
Oh no,
bitch.
It's just Rob. But yeah, the sound design, I would say, isn't the strongest part of the game, but you can certainly see where sort of the heart went into the music more than the sound design itself. Dia Dia Doc's the song that's like do 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 do. It really makes you I don't want to say make you feel like
makes you feel like Mario.
Makes you feel like Mario. When you do that triple jump and you hit it just right, you feel like Mario. Game developers, especially when you talk about superhero games, they get this rap from people where it's like they just get told that, oh, it feels like Batman, so it's a great game. It's like, could you say anything else? Imagine if they did that about Mario.
I mean, if anything feels like Mario, it's onto a winner.
Yeah, that's true. If you're playing Spider-Man and he's like, it feels like Mario. Yeah. You'd be like, well, I mean, it's got good controls. I mean,
I'd rather feel like Mario 64 than feel like Sonic 06.
Oh, coming out with the Sonic 06 burn early. Yeah. First episode. Oh, God.
Just wait for that one.
Yeah, that'll just be exactly what we've talked about today, but everything will be the exact opposite where you go, the sound design, terrible. The gameplay, terrible. I'm not even going to talk about it.
More dead silences. So what do you think about sound design?
And that's what you think. Nothing, because there isn't any.
Yeah.
It's just Tails being like, Sonic!
Oh, no.
No.
We'll talk about Tales in another episode. More specifically, Tales from Sonic Heroes, which I can't wait to speak about.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Many nightmares.
Yeah. But Mario sound design, much better.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. One thing that Super Mario 64 does coincide with whilst it was being made is the early days of the internet, which means for better or ill, it has a website. And naturally, when I found this website, which was pretty subpar, it was in Japanese. I mean, that sounds really horrible, doesn't it, to say it's subpar, but it's like the early days of the internet, so it's not very good. It's like a white screen with a JPEG of Mario and then some like coins that spin, like little GIFs. It's horrible. But so it was in Japanese, so I took the liberty of translating it on Google. And would you like to hear what it is?
Please.
Oh God, here we go. So Peach was also covered again, and Mario. I can't even. And Mario's big adventure journey begins now. But this time, Mario's adventure is a little different. Let's introduce the world of Super Mario 64, super scaled up with full 3D action. What?
Peach is covered again.
Covered in what? Who knows?
You just know it's Peach. She's going to be covered again.
Kate. But then it goes on to have a little bit of an outline for the story. And it says, let's come and play. I'll wait for you to bake the cake. That's in quotation marks. Who's saying it? I don't know, but it then says, it was Mario who was overjoyed by the letter from Peach, and the appearance of the castle was strange. It's calming down.
The appearance of the 3-story castle with lovely garden and windows and views.
It was strange, but it's calm. It's not angry. It's not angry. Don't get angry. And then there is an example of a dumb voice there. No one is there. I'm going home. Ga ha 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 ha. Is it again Koopa's work? But no one is really inside the castle. Mario, who is in trouble, jumps into a picture hanging on the wall. I mean, you can get the vibe of the game.
Yeah, loosely.
There's a castle.
The main thing they've spoke about is a cake. Granted, that's where the game starts.
Let's come to play. I'll wait for you to bake the cake.
Where's this cooking mama?
Who's waiting for them to bake the cake? Because Peach offers the cake in a letter and he goes, he's not expecting cake before he gets the letter.
No, so this is the prequel. She sent him a letter and he replies, I'll wait for you to bake the cake. Which is when the game starts. She's now baked cake and I'm like, well, come on then.
Yeah, there's a whole slew of letters before them. They've been writing to each other for months. And then all of a sudden something seems off and Bowser's in the castle, apparently. So Mario he's in trouble. He just jumps into a picture hanging on the wall. Apparently,
which is what you do.
Every time I see a picture, I just launch straight in.
Yeet for the nearest picture.
Oh, is this empty? Yeet, just like dive into a photo frame on a wall. So, after 3 years of development, on the 23rd of June 1996, Super Mario 64 was released in Japan, and it was met with critical praise in the Nintendo 64's best-selling game, selling 11.91 million copies. With the second place game going to Mario Kart 64, which sold 9.8 million copies.
Wow.
That's a lot of Mario.
Was it a buy-in?
I would assume you could bundle it with the Nintendo 64, but it...
Still
it's a lot. I don't think it's to the same extent where you say Wii Sports is the Wii's best-selling game, even though every single week
Sports sold 40 million of them. because it came with every single one.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, we sold 30, let's say they say, we sold 100 million Wiis, and then it's like, we only sold like 10 copies of Wii Sports because nobody wanted to buy it. But when you put it in there, it's like, we sold 10 million copies of Wii Sports. It's like, you didn't really though, did you?
Yeah.
You sold as many as you did Wiis, but with this, I think, yeah, it's a bit different because it wasn't just a packing with every single console. It would have been bundled with it, but you could get other games bundled with it instead, or you get it outside, afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of critical reception, as I was saying before, the game basically has got 9s or above across the board, even though it wasn't necessarily the first. Sort of the formula it went for was emulated afterwards, because Banjo-Kazooie is basically, I don't want to downplay Banjo-Kazooie, but it's basically in Mario 64, isn't it?
Yeah,
without
the triple jumps.
Yeah, without the triple jumps and a bird in a backpack. Yeah. So it's not really, but it's the same sort of core design, you would say.
Yeah, it's a grab 'em all sort of.
Grab your jiggies or your stars. Yeah. You collectathon. Yeah. That kind of
that's
thing.
The actual word.
Yeah, that's what we know games. You would think then that the team over at Nintendo and director Miyamoto weren't worried about the game. However, after its release, Miyamoto, on a keynote speech, is quoted as saying, "When we were stuck on talk of the spectacular 3D graphics of Mario 64 and racing games, we saw a huge hit in the form of Tamagotchi, a tiny keychain boasting pictures made up of no more than 10 or 20 dots. At that time, I thought that Mario 64 had lost Tamagotchi," and then Miyamoto quickly adds, "I'm serious."
Really?
Yeah, to Tamagotchi, the little keychains where you feed an animal, and then sometimes they release games on the DS.
But I think the thing is, though, back then it was big. That was the first Switch.
I think that's rich. That was the first Switch.
No,
it
was.
Dock the Tamagotchi into the television.
Yeah.
Do you mean first like portable sort of game for people that didn't really know much about games?
That mixed in with craze. Like, it was the first big craze I can think of, that it was like, you can just take this
wherever you go.
You can go wherever you want with it, and, just got to have a couple of AAAs.
I mean, okay, it's strange to think about it now, because what's the Tamagotchi IP at now? It's not like nothing. It has some games.
I think now it's probably just a mobile game.
It probably is.
I'm probably wrong, but I'm probably right.
No, I would say the odds are you are correct. It's a mobile game, and you probably have to pay for microtransactions where you can get other little Tamagotchis, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So you'd think then, where Tamagotchi is now, the Nintendo 64 and Mario 64 would have nothing to worry about. But around this time, the Nintendo 64 was actually taken over by the PlayStation, and many attribute this to the N64's use of cartridges and its odd-shaped controller, with like the weird object in the middle with the little joystick.
Yeah.
And both of which were implemented by Miyamoto to benefit Mario 64. Oversized yellow C-buttons for the camera, the stick for 360-degree fluid movement. However, that didn't mean that the controller's design was actually ergonomic. And I think, looking at it that way, you see that they sacrificed so much just to try and get Mario 64 to work.
Yeah. Which, in the long run, has paid off.
Yeah.
Because now Mario will sell a console for them.
Yeah, true.
But, no, I mean, just thinking about the controller, I hate that controller.
It's horrible.
It's so pointless. You can't use all the buttons at once.
I think that's the point, though, because when you're using the joystick in the middle, you're supposed to have like your one hand in the middle bit and one hand on the right bit, but then it just doesn't feel right, does it? Because you're like holding the middle and right of a controller and not the whole thing.
Yeah. But I think they tried to market it as there's so many different ways to play. You can have your hands here. No, just give me a controller where I can sit down and have to think about how I'm using the controller.
I mean, they've done that for the Switch actually as well, haven't they?
Have they?
Yeah, you can play with the controller in so many different ways.
They have, but in a way that you don't have to bloody think about it.
Yeah, true. You either have them as one controller or you turn it sideways and it's the exact same thing, just smaller.
Yeah. That's all that is. Whereas with the N64, it was very much just. I think it was just so they could get the analog stick on there, like you're saying.
Yeah, and then they tried to figure out an ergonomic way for you to use the analog stick, but instead of doing the thing that Xbox and PlayStation do, which is where you put it where your thumb would be.
The DualShock.
Yeah, just towards where the D-pad is. They just decided to throw it slap bang in the middle of the controller, and they're like, this is fine.
They probably kicked themselves so hard when they went, oh, you could have just done that. Right, yeah.
I mean, there's a reason you never see that design again, and the GameCube controller is eerily similar. The fat cousin of the DualShock.
Yeah.
The chubby, small cousin of the DualShock, where it's like similar design, but they kept the C-stick for some reason. They were like, we're not getting rid of this.
Yeah.
this pioneered Mario.
Rearing its ugly head.
Yeah. Even then, despite all of these like stumbles with the controller and using cartridges and being overtaken by the PlayStation, Super Mario 64 was, as we mentioned, such a success that a sequel was planned, and it was going to use the 64DD, which was the attachment for underneath the Nintendo 64 that would use CDs and things instead of a cartridge, because it was meant to have more power and it could store more data. A lot like the jump from DVD to Blu-ray, essentially. But then, except the DD was actually being made by Sony. And the reason the DD never came to fruition is because Sony sort of just went, wait, instead of just doing an attachment for a Nintendo console, we can just make our own.
I'm pretty sure Nintendo backed out.
One of them backed out.
Yeah, the whole point is that, like, Nintendo really kicked themselves in the backside. Because if they'd just gone through with it,
they would have probably stopped PlayStation from ever existing.
Pretty much.
Or in its
or at least they would have, put it off a bit.
All for Mario. The things we do for Mario, eh?
So long, Bowser!
So, to conclude about Mario 64, even years later, it's heralded for its design and innovation in the market of 3D gaming. Nintendo then, to capitalise on this sort of success, years later, in 2004, released Super Mario 64 DS, which is what we mentioned at the beginning, the versions that we've been playing when we were younger, because we didn't grow up with the N64, did we? We grew up with DSs and things.
Yes.
And it goes without saying that this was a DS remake, except instead of having the 120 stars in the game, it had 150. You could play as Yoshi, Wario, Luigi, and you could like switch between them, and different stars would be changed, like there'd be extra levels, all that kind of thing. There was a multiplayer mode. Wasn't like co-op, but you could play a little, like, you could do the slide level with your friends. And I think that sort of shows how successful the game was, in the fact that it's one of the early HD remakes in a lot of ways. Today you get like 1 million HD remakes a year, where it's like, this game that came out a few years ago, here it is on the next gen consoles with all the content and slightly better graphics, and we're going to call it the remaster, even though it's basically the same game.
Yeah.
This wasn't really the same game. It was different. It had loads of extra content, and it was meant to be brought to a different market, because when you release games on another console, it's like, oh, you still can't take it anywhere, but if you release it on the DS, play Mario anywhere.
I think DS did that a lot early on. And there's quite a few remakes, wasn't there?
I'm trying to think what other ones they had. There was Star Fox 64 was remade on it.
Yeah.
And probably like quite a few others, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of the ways that they do things. Instead of releasing a game either about dogs, they also released games about Mario. Oh, they re-released Zelda on 3DS and stuff as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
But I suppose that was a bit later on. So that was the development and release of Super Mario 64 and the first episode of the Retro Recall podcast. Do you have anything to say, Rob?
It's been eventful. Been 45 minutes, give or take.
Give or take, 38 seconds to be exact. But it depends. In the editing, it might be 5 seconds.
Yeah, the whole thing. Like, no, I hate that. No.
I just can't do it. This is all rubbish.
Yeah.
No, we'll see. But yeah, that's the first episode of the podcast. And if you want to talk to us on Twitter, you can find us at Release Retro. And then if you want to email us, it's retroreleasepod@gmail.com. And if you want to recommend a game to us, just hit us up on there, send us an email. Subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever this podcast ends up. Give us a review, preferably 5 stars. But you don't have to if you don't want to.
Please.
Please do, please. And all the sources I used for this will be in the episode description. So if you want to read the articles yourself, do a bit of digging, that's fine.
Please do remember to not eat yellow snow.